I will write it as a single flowing stream of poetic reflection, deeply spiritual, emotionally healing, and grounded in metaphysical truth. Please sit back and allow your soul to receive this transmission as it unfolds. Here comes the beginning. You don't need proof, you need presence. You've been conditioned to search for evidence, for confirmation, for someone to nod their head and say, yes, you're doing it right. You've been trained to wait for permission, to ask the world, to validate your worth, to hold up signs and signals and stamps of approval before you trust the whisper of your own heart. But the truth, the eternal truth, has never arrived wrapped in proof. The divine does not operate through justification. The soul does not shout. It simply is. Proof is a byproduct of the ego's anxiety. It says, I must be certain before I trust. I must be right before I act. I must be defended before I rest. But presence is the eternal invitation. It says, come as you are, and come now. Presence does not ask you to wait. It does not consult your resume of past mistakes. It does not hold up a measuring stick to the world and say, only when this adds up will you be enough. Presence is enough. You are not here to collect evidence that you are worthy. You are here to remember that you were never unworthy to begin with. You were not born to prove yourself, you were born to be yourself. And yourself is not some identity crafted by time, trauma, and talk. Yourself is not the name on your driver's license or the story you tell when someone asks, so what do you do? Yourself is eternal, spacious, free. It is the breath between your thoughts, the stillness underneath your striving, the witness behind your pain. And you will not find this self in proof. You will find it in presence. Because the moment you stop chasing the world to verify you, and you sit, truly sit, with the miracle that is your breath, the moment you stop asking if it's working and simply listen, the moment you stop running and allow your feet to kiss the ground beneath you, you will know that this moment is not lacking, that your soul is not broken, that there is nowhere to go to get more spiritual than now. You do not need to earn the right to feel divine. You already are. The trees are not applying for acceptance. The rivers are not asking for praise. The stars do not need a certificate to shine. Why then do you think your worth is found in results, in reactions, in receipts? Why have you allowed the sacredness of your presence to be chained to something so fragile as proof? You are here, breathing. That is enough. Proof is always something external. It demands that something outside you declares something about you. But presence is internal. Presence is direct communion with the divine. No middleman, no interpreter, no applause required. And presence doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be real. So if you're feeling lost, you're not broken, you're just listening to the wrong voice. You're tuned into the ego's channel, where the volume is always high and the message is always the same. Not yet, not enough. But the soul whispers, now is holy. You are whole. Be still. I am here. The great lie of the world is that truth is complicated. It is not. Truth is quiet, soft, liberating. It doesn't control, it sets free. And the reason so many miss it is not because it hides, but because they're looking for it in places it does not live. They look for it in comparison, in logic, in statistics, in the mouths of others. But truth is not found in external echoes, it is felt in the depth of your presence. What would happen if today, right now, you stopped looking for proof? What would happen if you stopped waiting for the world to mirror back to you your worth, and you chose instead to inhabit it, to radiate it, regardless of whether anyone else understands it? That is the spiritual path, to walk into the unknown with no guarantee and still keep your heart open, to breathe through the uncertainty without grabbing for control, to trust the invisible, not because it's proven, but because it's real and your soul knows it. The mind doubts. That's its nature. It wants facts, it wants clarity, it wants a roadmap, but the soul wants none of that. The soul wants experience. The soul wants presence. The soul says, even if the road disappears beneath my feet, I will walk. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You only need to take the next step. Not because someone said so, not because you're sure of the outcome, but because that step is calling you, and your peace depends on answering. If you live your life waiting for proof that the leap is safe, you'll stay stuck in the same spot forever. Growth does not live in the known. Growth lives in the surrendered heart. And surrender is the ultimate presence. When you release the need to be certain and you let go of the compulsion to control, you become available to miracles. Miracles are not found in the laboratory of logic. They are born in the breath, in the stillness, in the sacred space where your resistance dissolves and your awareness expands. This is why the masters teach stillness, why they teach silence, why they speak of the now as the portal, because it is only in presence that you become who you truly are. Not the mask, not the role, not the strategy, but the essence. You have spent so much of your life trying to prove you belong, not realizing you already do. You have waited for someone to validate your worth, not realizing you were born as the validation itself. You are not a mistake waiting to be corrected. You are a masterpiece learning how to be witnessed. And when you stop needing the world to say you are enough, you finally hear the voice within that has been saying it all along. You don't need proof, you need presence. Stay with me. There's more to remember, more to unfold, more to awaken in you. And in this presence, you begin to feel the sacred rhythm that has always been guiding you. Not a rhythm you can track with a stopwatch, not a beat defined by the world's loud ticking of deadlines and expectations, but an inner rhythm, a divine pulse. The gentle thrum of your own soul saying, I am with you. I have never left you. You are safe to exhale. When you stop chasing evidence and start embracing existence, something softens. The clenched jaw of your mind begins to loosen. The armor of your personality begins to crack. And through those cracks, the light gets in, not because you proved anything, but because you finally allowed yourself to be seen without proving. It is not your perfection that makes you holy. It is your openness, your willingness to meet life without a script, your courage to feel without filtering, to listen without defending, to show up without pretense. That is presence. That is where love lives. Presence asks nothing from you but this: be here. Be here without rushing away. Be here without judging what arises. Be here without dragging the past into this breath or projecting the future onto this moment. Be here as if this breath were the whole universe, because it is. This moment does not need to compete with any other moment. It does not need to measure up or outperform your expectations. It simply is, and that is enough. But the ego, loud and persistent, says, what does it mean? Where is it going? What if it's not enough? And so it pulls you from presence and throws you into performance. You begin to perform for the world for approval, applause, attention. And in that performance, you forget the peace that only comes from simply being. You trade authenticity for acceptance. You sacrifice alignment for admiration. But there is no amount of praise that can fill the void left by the absence of your own presence. You are the one you've been searching for. You are the home you keep trying to find in other people, in other outcomes, in other lifetimes. And that home cannot be built with bricks of proof. It is carved from stillness. It is shaped by surrender. If the soul had a language, it would be silence. If it had a direction, it would be inward. If it had a desire, it would be only this, for you to remember. Remember that your value is not earned, it is inherent. That your being is not on trial, it is divine. That your breath is not a task, it is a gift. And when you enter presence, truly enter it, the need for proof vanishes like mist in morning light. You become whole. Not because you fixed anything, but because you finally stopped trying to. The most powerful transformations don't happen when you strive, they happen when you allow yourself to be here. Even with the doubt, even with the questions, even with the fear. Don't wait for perfect clarity to show up fully. Don't wait until every wound is healed before you bless the world with your light. You are already holy, even in your unraveling. Presence says, come as you are. Presence says, I will not reject you. Presence says, your being is enough of a reason to be loved. The ego says you need results. The soul says you only need roots. Root yourself in this breath. Feel its fullness, its simplicity, its honesty. Do you feel that? That's life, not the idea of it, not the pursuit of it, but the direct experience of it. And that experience is the miracle. Not because it's grand or glamorous, but because it's real. Realness is the rarest thing in the world. But presence is always real. It is not a pose. It is not a strategy. It is not a means to an end. It is the end itself. What if you let presence be enough? What if you lived not to be remembered, but to be real? Not to be impressive, but to be in touch with the divine, with yourself, with this sacred now. The irony is, the more present you become, the more your life does change. Not because you tried to fix it, but because you finally stopped resisting it. Healing does not require evidence. It requires honesty. Freedom does not demand proof. It requires surrender. Peace does not wait for perfection. It only asks for presence. Your task is not to force your way into grace. It is to open, that's it, to open the windows of your soul and let the divine breeze flow through. To stop closing the shutters in fear that you will be judged, and instead to let the light touch every part of you, even the parts you've hidden, especially those parts, because the presence of God, of truth, of love, of source, does not shy away from your shadow. It welcomes it, it embraces it, it whispers, you are still worthy. Even now, even here, you don't need to be more to be loved. You only need to be here, fully, quietly, openly. And from that sacred space, everything changes. Not because you made it change, but because you remembered who you are beneath the noise. You are not your fear. You are not your thoughts. You are not your bank account, your failures, your followers, or your timeline. You are the awareness that holds it all. You are the presence in which it all unfolds. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the light, not the lampshade. You are the soul, not the scars. So let go. Let go of the narrative. Let go of the defense. Let go of the constant mental courtroom where you're trying to prove your innocence to some invisible judge. There is no trial. You are already free. You are already held. You are already home. And nothing outside of you needs to prove that. Let that truth soak into your being. Let it rearrange the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you breathe. Not because you've adopted a new belief, but because you've returned to a timeless knowing. You don't need proof. You need presence. And presence has always been waiting. When you live in presence, you stop demanding the world to give you reasons to feel secure, and you begin to discover that security was never meant to come from things. You realize the peace you've been chasing through achievements, approval, and applause has always been within you, quietly waiting behind the noise. The moment you stop outsourcing your worth to the ever-changing world, you return to something still, something sacred, something eternal. Presence is not passive, it is not complacent. It is the most radical act of being fully here, heart unclenched, eyes clear, breath conscious, soul awake. It is not about tuning out the world, but tuning into the moment so deeply that the world stops spinning you around. You stop reacting and start responding not from ego, but from awareness. And in that response, there is wisdom, there is grace, there is love that asks for nothing in return. So many people are addicted to control because they fear that without it, they will be lost. But presence teaches you to trust the unknown. It teaches you that you don't need to have all the answers, you just need to be available for what's true. And the truth is not something you find once and cling to. It is something you meet in every breath, in every encounter, in every sacred silence you allow yourself to feel. When you're present, you stop rehearsing life. You stop living from memory and expectation. You stop dragging yesterday into today. You stop bargaining with tomorrow for the right to feel peace now. And in that stillness, you see clearly. The proof you were chasing was only ever a substitute for presence. It was a distraction from your own divinity. But now you can see. You are not here to convince the world that you're enough. You are here to embody the truth that you already are. And when you do, the world may not understand you. Some will question your peace. Some will be threatened by your stillness. Some will ask for your evidence, your logic, your justification. But don't shrink. Don't harden. Don't close your heart to protect your presence. Let it shine, even if no one sees. Because presence is not performative. It is not trying to impress. It is not seeking attention. It is not screaming to be seen. Presence simply is, like the moon, like the tide, like the sacred hum beneath the noise of your mind. And it is in this space that healing begins. Not the kind of healing that's loud and dramatic, but the quiet kind. The kind that happens in your cells when you finally stop fighting yourself. The kind that washes over you when you stop asking if you're doing enough and start realizing you are enough. The kind that whispers, you are safe now. You don't have to prove anymore. The ego fears presence because presence dissolves the ego. The ego survives by feeding on fear, by creating stories of separation, by needing to be right, to be important, to be superior. But presence has no need for superiority. It recognizes unity. It sees through the illusion of me versus them and invites you into the sacred recognition that all is one, all is now, all is divine. You cannot be present and judgmental at the same time. You cannot be present and resentful at the same time. You cannot be truly present and feel separate from Source at the same time. Because when you are truly here, the veil lifts, the illusion melts, and you see with the eyes of the soul that everything you thought you needed to prove was only ever a shadow of the light you already carry. This is why the mystics smile without reason. This is why the awakened ones seem so still. It is not because life has stopped happening to them. It is because they have stopped needing proof to live. They have stopped outsourcing their trust. They have learned to sit in the fire without flinching, to rest in the unknown without collapsing, to be present in joy and pain alike, because presence does not discriminate. It holds it all. It blesses it all. So if you're walking through something heavy, something unclear, something painful, don't run, don't numb, don't escape. Be present with it. Not to fix it, but to feel it. Not to rush through it, but to breathe into it. Because your pain doesn't need to be avoided, it needs to be met. Your wounds don't need to be hidden, they need to be honored. Your uncertainty doesn't need to be solved, it needs to be sat with. There is a wisdom in your pain that can only be heard through presence. There is a grace in your sorrow that can only be seen when you stop demanding it go away. And there is a love within you that does not require any proof to exist. It only asks for your attention. That love is not earned. It is remembered. And presence is the portal through which that remembrance returns. Keep returning to this moment. Not with force, but with gentleness. Not with urgency, but with devotion. With the tenderness of one who is finally ready to stop running and start receiving. Because life is not a test. It is a temple. And your presence is the offering. The world will always offer you more distractions, more reasons to doubt, more mirrors of lack. But you are not obligated to accept any of it. You are not required to consume every opinion. You are not meant to build your identity out of comparisons. You are here to come alive in your own truth, and that truth is not noisy, it is not flashy, it is not dramatic. It is quiet, and it is found in your presence. Let go of the search for signs. Let go of the hunger for validation. Let go of the checklist that says, only when I have these things, then I will feel whole. Wholeness is not a future destination. It is a present reality. The more you return to this breath, the more you remember who you are, not the person you were told to be, not the role you play, not the performance you've perfected, but the presence that has been witnessing it all. That presence is you. That is the real you. The you that cannot be proven because it cannot be denied. And in that realization, the struggle ends. The striving quiets, the inner war dissolves, and you are left with the miracle you've been missing all along this breath, this moment, this sacred now. There comes a point in the spiritual journey where you are no longer content with understanding these truths conceptually. You want to embody them. You want to live them, breathe them, let them guide your hands and soften your heart in the middle of an ordinary moment. Because what good is knowing about presence if you're never present? What good is believing in peace if you never taste it in the silence of your own breath? So let this presence become a practice, not a performance, not another task to master, but a devotion, a remembering. Let it be as simple as pausing before you speak, as sacred as closing your eyes and feeling your feet on the ground, as transformative as letting a moment of stillness interrupt the momentum of your unconscious thoughts. This is how the divine lives through you, not in grand gestures, but in quiet moments of undivided attention. You don't need to chant ancient words or sit on a mountain to awaken. You only need to show up again and again to this moment, without agenda, without resistance, without pretending to be anything other than what you are. Because presence is not about escaping the human experience, it's about being fully awake within it. And when you are awake, truly awake, you see the ego for what it is. Not a villain, but a frightened child. A mechanism built to protect you, but now standing in the way of your freedom. The ego says, let me be in charge. Let me manage your image, your outcomes, your worth. But presence looks the ego in the eye and says, you are not my enemy, you are my teacher. And I release you with love. You cannot fight the ego into silence. You cannot shame it into submission, but you can hold it in awareness. You can smile at it. You can bless it for all the times it tried to protect you, even when it was misguided. And in that blessing, its power begins to fade. Not because you conquered it, but because you stopped believing in its story. Presence reveals the story for what it is. A play, a projection, a layer of meaning placed upon reality, but never reality itself. And as you sit with that recognition, as you watch your thoughts without becoming them, your identity begins to dissolve, not into nothingness, but into spaciousness, into truth, into love. You begin to trust that you don't need to carry the burden of being someone all the time. You can be no one and everyone. You can let go of the armor, the titles, the constant self-editing, and still be completely, beautifully whole. And in this trust, you find a peace the world cannot offer. A peace that does not depend on circumstances, does not waver with opinions, does not evaporate under pressure. It is a peace born of presence, because presence connects you with the eternal, the unchanging, the real. From this stillness, clarity arises. Not the kind that comes from mental effort, but the kind that feels like a sunrise breaking through fog. You just know. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it. You simply feel the quiet conviction of truth vibrating through your being. And this truth doesn't need validation. It doesn't need consensus. It doesn't need to be proven, because it is not coming from the mind, it is arising from the soul. The more you live in presence, the more you begin to experience the fruit of presence. Not only peace, but power. Not the kind of power that controls, but the kind that liberates. The kind that allows you to say no without guilt, yes without fear, and I don't know without shame. The kind of power that radiates rather than dominates. This is the power of alignment. When your being and your doing flow from the same well. When your choices come not from pressure, but from presence. When you stop living from reaction and start living from awareness, and from this awareness, love flows. Not the conditional kind, not the kind that says, only if you please me, only if you choose me, only if you make me feel safe. No, love that asks for nothing. Love that shines because it cannot help but shine. Love that holds no ledger, keeps no score, carries no fear. This love begins within you, for you. Because until you can sit in your own presence and feel love, not from what you've achieved, not from who approves of you, but simply from the fact that you exist, you will never believe anyone else's love is real. Your relationship with presence is your relationship with love. Your capacity to be here is your capacity to receive grace. And as this love expands, you begin to see the world differently. You stop labeling people as threats or tools or obstacles. You start seeing souls instead of stories. You look into eyes and feel God looking back. You walk down the street and feel reverence instead of rush. Because everywhere you go, there you are, present, open, alive. This is the sacred gift of presence. It dissolves the illusion of separation. It heals the original wound, the one that whispered you were ever disconnected from your source. You were never disconnected. You only thought you were. And now you see. Now you feel. Now you remember. You remember that you are the light you've been chasing, that the doorway you've been knocking on opens inward, that the peace you've been praying for has been breathing with you all along. So let the striving end. Let the chasing stop. Let the proving fall away like autumn leaves from tired branches. There is nothing more you need to become. There is only something deeper you are ready to be. Be still. Be true. Be here. Let the world go on spinning. Let the opinions float like clouds. Let the mind do what it does. You stay present. Stay rooted in the now. Stay in communion with the miracle of your own breath, because this moment is not ordinary. It is not small. It is not meaningless. It is sacred. It is the entire universe showing up in form just for you, just for now, just so you could remember that presence is not the path to peace. Presence is peace. And when you are present, the need for proof dissolves like fog under sunlight. You feel you are. There is a moment, subtle but life-changing, when you no longer need to explain your peace. When you no longer need to prove your worth. When you no longer feel the urgency to defend your path, your pace, your presence. And in that moment, you are free. Free not because the world gave you permission, but because you stopped asking for it. You stop asking for evidence to trust your own knowing. You stop asking for confirmation before following your heart. You stop needing others to feel what you feel in order for it to be real. Because presence is not a shared consensus, it is a sacred intimacy between you and the divine. And that intimacy doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be true. It only needs to be met with honesty, with courage, with surrender. You are not here to prove your path. You are here to walk it. You are not here to be understood. You are here to understand yourself, your soul, your source. And when you come into this kind of clarity, your life no longer operates on the frequency of fear. You no longer act to prevent rejection, you act from alignment. You no longer speak to be liked, you speak to be real. You no longer wait for the right moment, you live as if every moment is already right, because it is. The divine doesn't operate on delay. It doesn't say you must prove your value before I bless you with peace. The divine says, be here now, and all things will be added unto you. But not because you earned them, because you allowed them. You see, when you are present, you are receptive. You become available to grace, to love, to synchronicity, to inspiration. You become the open vessel through which miracles flow. Not the kind that break the laws of nature, but the kind that reveal the nature of God. And the miracle always is this: you are already what you seek. You are already enough, already whole, already held. The seeking ends not when you find more, but when you finally see what's always been here. No more running, no more waiting, no more conditions. Just this, just now, just you, unfiltered, undefended, unburdened. This is what the mystics meant when they said to die before you die. They meant the death of the false self, the death of the seeker, the death of the belief that peace lies somewhere else, sometime later, in someone else's eyes or on someone else's timeline. And when that illusion dies, something else is born, or more accurately, revealed. The ever-present self, the still point, the I am, the you that is not separate from God, but an expression of God, a wave that remembers it, is the ocean. You are not a seeker anymore. You are a rememberer. You remember now that the need for proof was never yours. It was inherited from a world that forgot how to trust, from a system that taught you to doubt your intuition, suppress your truth, and trade presence for productivity. But that system cannot hold you anymore. That old framework is too small for your expanded awareness. You've outgrown it. You've cracked the shell. You've tasted something deeper, and now you cannot unknow it. You cannot go back to sleep. You are awake. An awakening is not a destination, it is a devotion, a commitment to return again and again to this sacred place inside you where nothing needs to be explained and everything is already enough. So when the noise returns, and it will, when the ego rises, and it will, when the doubt creeps in, and the world asks for your proof once more, smile, not with arrogance, but with awareness. Smile, because you remember what they've forgotten. Smile because you no longer need their permission to feel divine. Smile because you are home, not in a place, but in a presence. Not in a belief, but in being. And being, just being, is the holiest thing you will ever do. So let your presence become your prayer. Let your breath become your altar. Let your stillness become your strength. Let your love become your legacy. And let the need to prove anything fall away like a skin you've shed. It served its time. But now you live from truth. And truth, real truth, doesn't need to shout. It just is, as you are here. Now, always. You don't need proof, you need presence. And now, beloved soul, you have it. Welcome home.
The very fact that you are here tonight suggests that something within you knows there is more. Something in you recognizes that the state of consciousness in which you dwell is not the final chapter of your story. And you are absolutely right, for no state is final unless you decree it to be so. The magnificent truth I wish to share with you tonight is that freedom, complete and total freedom, is your natural inheritance. It is the fundamental reality of your being, and the path to claiming this freedom is not outside of you, but within the divine operation of your own wonderful human imagination. Let me share with you a profound truth that changed my life and has transformed the lives of countless others who have tested it and found it to be the one grand law of life. Consciousness is the one and only reality. Everything that you perceive, everything that makes up your world is nothing more than your consciousness pushed out. The world that seems to hold you captive is but a reflection of your own states of consciousness made visible. The prison that appears to constrain you exists nowhere but in your own imagination. When you truly grasp this principle, not merely intellectually, but in the very depths of your being, you will understand that the key to your freedom has been in your possession all along. For if consciousness is the only reality and your world is simply consciousness objectified, then to change your world, you need only change your consciousness. This is the divine art of assumption. By assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you can transform the shadow world of limitation into the substance of freedom. Many people come to me and say, Nebel, I understand these principles. I grasp them intellectually, but still I feel stuck. I cannot seem to break free from my circumstances. And to this I reply, the feeling of being stuck persists because you have not yet made real to yourself the truth that you are pure consciousness, pure awareness, and that this consciousness is the only reality. You have not fully accepted that the world and all its circumstances are mere reflections, mere shadows of your own magnificent inner states. Consider for a moment what it means to be stuck. To be stuck implies that there is something external to you, something outside of your control that is restraining your movement, limiting your options, confining your existence. But I tell you with absolute certainty, there is nothing outside of consciousness. There is nothing external to you, for you are consciousness, and consciousness is all there is. The walls you perceive around you, the limitations you feel so acutely exist only because you have granted them reality in your consciousness. Tonight, I invite you to make a revolutionary discovery. You are not stuck because of external circumstances. You are experiencing the state of being stuck because you are dwelling in that state in consciousness. And just as you can enter a state, you can exit it. Just as you can assume one state of consciousness, you can assume another. This is the miracle of your being the power to choose the state in which you will dwell. Let me share with you a simple yet profound practice that will begin to dissolve the illusion of being stuck. Right now, wherever you are, close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and relax your body completely. Now, in your imagination, see yourself as you would be if you were completely free. Feel the feeling of that freedom. What would it feel like to move without restriction? How would you carry yourself if all limitations were gone? What thoughts would fill your mind if you knew yourself to be absolutely free? Dwell in this state. Saturate yourself with the feeling of freedom. Make it so real, so vivid, that for a moment you forget the old state of being stuck. In that moment of complete absorption in the state of freedom, you have planted a seed in the fertile soil of your consciousness, and what you plant must grow. What you assume must become, but perhaps you're thinking, I've tried this before and nothing changed. To this, I would remind you of a principle I often emphasize. The time track is a device of the human mind. In the realm of consciousness, in the realm of true causation, there is no time. The seed planted in consciousness will blossom in your world when the conditions are right, when the bridge of incidence has been crossed. Your role is not to make the seed grow. Your role is not to force the manifestation. Your role is simply to plant the seed through the art of assumption and to remain faithful to that assumption despite all evidence to the contrary. For remember, the evidence of your senses only tells you what is, it cannot tell you what will be. And what will be is determined not by what is, but by the state you occupy in consciousness. In my own life, I have tested this law countless times, and it has never failed me. I recall a time when I felt completely constrained by financial limitations. All the evidence of my senses told me that I was trapped in poverty, that there was no way out. But instead of accepting this as my final state, I began to assume the feeling of wealth and abundance. I would fall asleep each night, feeling the joy and relief of financial freedom. I would walk through my days carrying myself as one who was abundantly supplied. I did not deny the facts of my current situation, but I refused to give them power over my consciousness. And then seemingly out of nowhere opportunities began to present themselves. Doors began to open that I could not have anticipated. People entered my life bearing gifts that aligned perfectly with my needs. The bridge of incidents formed itself, leading me from the state of financial constraint to the state of abundance I had assumed in consciousness. This is the law that governs all manifestation. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you experience in the outer world is simply consciousness objectified. Therefore, to change your experience, you must change your consciousness. But changing consciousness is not a matter of positive thinking or wishful hoping. It is not about affirming affirmations or repeating mantras. It is about entering so completely into the state of your wish fulfilled that you temporarily forget all other states. It is about making your desired state so vivid, so real in your imagination that it displaces your awareness of the unwanted state. Let me offer you a practical approach to this divine art of assumption. Tonight, when you retire to sleep, lie upon your bed and relax your body completely. Then in your imagination, construct a scene that would imply your freedom from whatever condition has made you feel stuck. Make the scene as vivid and as real as you possibly can. For instance, if you feel stuck in a job that drains your energy and stifles your creativity, imagine a conversation with a friend in which you share your excitement about your new position, one that fulfills you and allows your talents to flourish. Hear your friend's congratulations. Feel the handshake or the embrace. Experience the relief and joy of having transcended the old limitation. Or perhaps you feel stuck in a relationship pattern that brings you pain. Imagine instead a conversation in which you describe to a trusted friend the wonderful harmony and love you now experience. Feel the satisfaction of having moved beyond the old pattern into a new state of mutual respect and affection. Whatever the specific circumstance that has made you feel stuck, create a scene that would naturally follow if you were now free from that limitation. Enter fully into this imaginal scene. Make it so real that for a brief time you forget you are imagining. Feel the feelings that the fulfilled wish would bring. Then, carrying this feeling, drift off to sleep. In doing this, you are planting the seed of your freedom in the fertile soil of consciousness. You are impressing upon the subconscious mind, which knows no limitations and possesses the power to transform your world, the reality of your wish fulfilled. And what is impressed upon the subconscious must be expressed in your world. Some of you may wonder, how long must I persist in this practice before I see results? The answer is you persist until the feeling of your wish fulfilled becomes more real to you than the feeling of being stuck. You persist until you have displaced the old state completely and dwell naturally in the new state. For some, this displacement may occur in a single night of profound imagining. For others, it may require repeated sessions of entering the state of the wish fulfilled. But know this, the law is infallible. What you assume you must become, what you impress upon consciousness, consciousness must express. Remember, time is a construct of the human mind. In the realm of true causation, the realm of consciousness, there is no time. The seed planted today may flower tomorrow or next week or next month. Your task is not to set the timetable for manifestation. Your task is simply to plant the seed with conviction and to tend it with fidelity to your assumption. Now, I understand that for many of you, the feeling of being stuck has persisted for so long that it seems like an unchangeable fact of your existence. Perhaps you've tried various methods to break free, positive thinking, goal setting, seeking advice from experts, and still the walls remain. This persistent experience can make it difficult to believe that freedom is truly possible for you. But I ask you to consider this: the very fact that you can conceive of freedom proves that it exists within your consciousness. And if it exists within your consciousness, it can be made manifest in your world. For consciousness is the only reality, and what exists in consciousness must, by the law of assumption, be expressed in experience. The Bible, when properly understood as a psychological drama rather than a historical document, reveals this truth. When the psalmist says, "He brought me forth also into a large place, He delivered me, because He delighted in me," he is describing the movement from a state of confinement to a state of freedom that occurs when one delights in or fully occupies a new state of consciousness. And in Isaiah we read, "Enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thy inhabitation. Spare not, lengthen thy cords and strengthen thy stakes." This is not a command to physically expand one's dwelling. It is an invitation to expand consciousness, to move beyond the limited state in which one has been dwelling, and to occupy a larger, more expansive state. This expansion of consciousness is the true meaning of freedom. It is not merely freedom from external constraints, though that will follow, but freedom from the limited concepts, self and world, that have kept you bound to unwanted conditions. Consider the story of the Exodus, which is often read as a historical account of the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt. But on a deeper level, it is the story of consciousness liberating itself from the bondage of limiting beliefs and assumptions. Egypt represents the state of limitation, the state of being stuck, and the journey to the promised land represents the movement of consciousness from limitation to freedom. But note well, Before the Israelites could physically leave Egypt, they had to leave it in consciousness. They had to believe in the possibility of freedom before freedom could become their experience. This is the pattern of all liberation, first in consciousness, then in manifestation. So tonight, I invite you to begin your exodus from the Egypt of limitation. I invite you to cross the Red Sea of impossibility and to enter the wilderness of transformation, trusting that the promised land of your freedom awaits you. But how does one begin this journey? How does one take the first step toward freedom when feeling so completely stuck? The answer lies in the art of revision, the practice of mentally rewriting the events of your day to align with the state you wish to occupy. Each night, before you enter into the state of your wish fulfilled as you fall asleep, take a few moments to review the events of your day. Identify moments when you felt particularly stuck, when the walls seemed especially confining. Now in your imagination, rewrite these events. See them unfolding differently. Feel how you would have felt if in those moments you had experienced freedom rather than limitation. For instance, if during the day you had a conversation in which you felt small and powerless, revise that conversation. In your imagination, see yourself speaking with confidence and authority. Feel the satisfaction of expressing yourself fully and being received with respect. Or if you encountered a circumstance that seemed to confirm your state of being stuck, revise that circumstance. See it unfolding in a way that confirms your freedom instead. This practice of revision serves two powerful purposes. First, it prevents the accumulation of impressions that would reinforce the unwanted state. By revising the events of your day, you are ensuring that your subconscious is not being continually impressed with the feeling of being stuck. Second, it actively impresses upon the subconscious the feeling of the state you wish to occupy, the state of freedom. Over time, this practice will transform your habitual state of consciousness. And as your consciousness transforms, so must your world transform, for your world is nothing more than your consciousness objectified. But perhaps the most challenging aspect of this practice is maintaining fidelity to your new assumption in the face of persisting evidence to the contrary. The world, being a shadow of past states of consciousness, will for a time continue to reflect the old state even as you begin to dwell in the new. This persistence of the old reality can test your faith in the law, tempting you to abandon your assumption and return to the familiar if unwanted state of being stuck. This is why I emphasize the importance of dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled with such intensity, such completeness, that for those moments at least, the old state is entirely forgotten, for it is in these moments of complete absorption in the new state that the most powerful impressions are made upon the subconscious. I recall a student of mine who had been confined to a wheelchair for many years following an accident. All medical opinion confirmed that his condition was permanent, yet night after night, he would enter into the state of being whole and active. In his imagination, he would dance, run, climb stairs with ease. He would feel the strength in his legs, the freedom of movement, the joy of physical activity. For months there was no visible change in his condition. The evidence of his senses continued to testify to his limitation, but he remained faithful to his assumption. He continued to revise his days, replacing moments of limitation with imaginal experiences of freedom. He continued to fall asleep each night in the state of his wish fulfilled, and then gradually things began to change. Sensation began to return to parts of his body that had been numb. Small movements became possible where there had been none. Medical professionals were baffled but confirmed the changes, and over time, through what they called a miraculous recovery, he regained the full use of his body. Was this a miracle in the supernatural sense? No, it was the natural operation of the law of consciousness. He had so completely revised his concept of himself, so thoroughly impressed upon the subconscious the state of being whole and free, that the subconscious had no choice but to express this new concept in his physical experience. This same law operates in every sphere of your life. Whether you feel stuck in health, in wealth, in relationships, in career, the way out is the same. You must revise your concept of self. You must exchange your limited self-concept for an expanded one, and you must do this not merely as an intellectual exercise, but as a vivid, feelingful experience in imagination. For imagination is not, as many suppose, a faculty for daydreaming or escapism. Imagination is nothing less than consciousness itself in its creative aspect. It is the God power within you, the I am clothed in the specific forms of your assumptions. When you say, I am stuck, you are not merely describing your condition, You are invoking the creative power of the I am to produce and sustain that condition. And when you say, I am free, you are invoking that same power to produce and sustain freedom. The I am in you will become whatever you attach to it through feeling. This is why feelings are so crucial in the law of assumption. It is not enough to intellectually understand that you are not truly stuck, that the limitations you perceive are illusions of consciousness. You must feel your freedom. You must experience it so vividly in imagination that the feeling of being stuck is displaced completely, if only for a moment. Some may argue, but Wayne, the circumstances that make me feel stuck are real. They are not merely in my imagination. To this I would reply, yes, the circumstances appear real because they are the objectification of previous states of consciousness. They are the shadow cast by the light of consciousness. But shadows, no matter how dark they appear, cannot persist in the presence of light. When you shift your consciousness from the state of being stuck to the state of being free, you are turning on the light. And though the shadow may not disappear instantly, it must eventually give way to the light, for that is the law of consciousness. I invite you to test this law for yourself. Do not take my word for it. Do not believe it merely because it appeals to you intellectually. Test it in the laboratory of your own life. Apply the principles I have shared with you tonight to some area where you feel stuck and observe the results with the detachment of a scientist. Begin tonight. When you retire to sleep, revise the events of your day that reinforce the feeling of being stuck. Then enter fully into a scene that implies your freedom. Make it vivid. Feel it deeply. Carry this feeling as you drift off to sleep. Do this night after night and watch how your world begins to transform. Notice how opportunities appear that were not there before. Observe how circumstances rearrange themselves to accommodate your new state of consciousness. Marvel at the bridge of incidents that forms itself, leading you from the state of being stuck to the state of freedom you have assumed in consciousness. But a word of caution, do not look for science too eagerly in the beginning. Do not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. Allow the law to operate in its own time and in its own way. Your role is to plant the seed through assumption and to nurture it through fidelity to that assumption. The law will take care of the manifestation. I am reminded of a beautiful passage from Ecclesiastes. In the morning sow thy seed, and in the evening withhold not thine hand, for thou knowest not whether shall prosper either this or that, or whether they both shall be alike good. Sow the seed of your assumption in the morning of your consciousness, and sow it again in the evening. Do not try to determine which particular act of sowing will produce the harvest. Trust the law to bring forth the manifestation in its own perfect time. There is another aspect of the feeling of being stuck that I wish to address, for it can be particularly pernicious. Often the feeling of being stuck is accompanied by a sense of unworthiness, a belief that one does not deserve freedom, or that one has somehow caused one's own imprisonment through past mistakes or failures. This sense of unworthiness is itself a state of consciousness, and like all states, it can be exchanged for another. You need not justify your desire for freedom. You need not earn the right to live the life you wish to live. Freedom is your natural inheritance. It is the fundamental reality of your being. To claim it, you need only assume it as yours. In the scripture, we read, your Father has pleased to give you the kingdom. The kingdom, the realm of infinite possibility of complete freedom, is already yours. It has already been given to you. Your task is not to earn it, but to accept it, to assume it, to enter into it through the portal of your imagination. So tonight, as you lie down to sleep, let go of all thoughts on worthiness. Release all beliefs that you must somehow qualify for the freedom you desire. Instead, assume the feeling of already being the person you wish to be, already living the life you wish to live, already possessing the freedom you seek. For in the realm of consciousness, in the realm of the real, there is no process of becoming. There is only being. You do not become free. You recognize the freedom that has always been yours. You do not achieve the fulfillment of your desires. You awaken to the fulfillment that has always existed within you. This is the great mystery to which all spiritual teachings point. What you are seeking, you already are. What you desire to possess, you already possess. The journey is not one of acquisition, but of recognition. When you truly understand this, the feeling of being stuck dissolves like mist in the morning sun. For how can you be stuck when you are consciousness itself, and consciousness is unlimited? How can you be confined when your true identity is the I am, and the I am knows no restrictions? Let me share with you one more practice that can help to dissolve the feeling of being stuck. Throughout your day, whenever you catch yourself feeling limited or confined, pause and ask yourself this question. What would the feeling be like if I were now the person I desire to be? How would I see this circumstance if I were now free from all limitations? Then, for just a moment, assume that feeling. Enter into it completely. Let it permeate your being. This momentary assumption, repeated throughout your day, will gradually transform your habitual state of consciousness. And as your consciousness transforms, so must your world transform. Remember the words attributed to Jesus. The truth shall make you free, but what is this truth that liberates? It is the truth of your own being that you are pure consciousness, that you are the operant power, that the world is your consciousness pushed out. When you know this truth, not merely intellectually, but through the direct experience of testing it in your own life, you will never again feel permanently stuck in any circumstance, for you will have discovered the secret of liberation. The prison that seemed to confine you was built by your own imagination, and what imagination has constructed, imagination can deconstruct. The walls that appeared so solid were made of assumptions, and assumptions can be changed. This is the freedom I offer you tonight. Not freedom from certain circumstances, but freedom from the belief that circumstances have power over you. Not freedom from conditions, but freedom from the assumption that conditions can contain the infinite being that you are. Test this law of assumption. Apply it to your own feeling of being stuck. Enter fully into the state of your wish fulfilled and observe how the universe rearranges itself to accommodate your new concept of self. For that is the promise of the law: as a man assumes, so he becomes. And know this, there is no limitation in consciousness itself. The only limitations are those you accept through your assumptions. Therefore, assume freedom, and freedom must become your experience. Assume abundance, and abundance must flow into your life. Assume love, and love must surround you. For consciousness is the only reality, and what you assume in consciousness must be made manifest in your world. The choice is yours. You can continue to assume the state of being stuck, and your experience will continue to validate that assumption. Or you can assume the state of freedom and watch as the universe conspires to make that assumption a reality. Begin tonight as you fall asleep. Enter so completely into the feeling of your wish fulfilled that the feeling of being stuck is utterly forgotten. Do this night after night and test the law for yourself. For the promise is true if you know these things. Happy are you if you do them. The practice I have outlined for you is simple, but it requires discipline and persistence. It requires that you be faithful to your assumption even when all the evidence of your senses contradicts it. But the rewards of this faithfulness are beyond measure. For in assuming the state of freedom, you are not merely changing your circumstances. You are awakening to the truth of your being. You are recognizing the divine power that has been yours from the beginning. This recognition is the true meaning of salvation, not salvation from an external threat, but salvation from the limited concept of self that has kept you bound to unwanted conditions. It is awakening to the truth that sets you free. So tonight, as you leave this place, carry with you this knowledge. The feeling of being stuck is not your natural state. It is an assumed condition, and what has been assumed can be relinquished. Freedom is your birthright, your natural inheritance, the fundamental reality of your being. Claim it through the divine art of assumption and watch as the prison walls that seem so solid dissolve like shadows of the light of your own awakened consciousness. For you are not a prisoner unless you believe yourself to be one. You are not stuck unless you assume yourself to be stuck. You are free eternally, completely free when you awaken to the truth of your own infinite being. Begin the practice tonight. Enter the state of freedom through the portal of your imagination. Feel it with all the intensity you can muster and know that as you assume this state, as you make it real in your consciousness, it must become real in your experience. For that is the law, that is the promise, that is the truth that sets you free. Remember, always consciousness is the only reality, and you are consciousness. Therefore, you are the reality behind all appearances. You are the power that shapes your world. You are the freedom you seek. Go now and test this truth for yourself. For in testing it, you will discover the greatest secret of all. The key to your freedom has been in your possession all along. It is your own wonderful human imagination, the God power within you clothed in the specific forms of your assumptions. Use this power wisely. Use it lovingly. Use it to liberate yourself from all limitations, and as you experience the freedom that is your natural state. Share this knowledge with others who still feel stuck, that they too might awaken to the truth of their being. For this is why we are here, not merely to seek our own liberation, but to help awaken all humanity to the glorious truth that sets everyone free. The truth that there is no power outside of consciousness, the truth that what we assume we become, the truth that freedom is not a destination to be reached, but a present reality to be recognized. So tonight assume the state of freedom, feel its reality, live from it, and watch as your world transforms to reflect the new concept of self you have assumed. For that is the promise of the law, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The renewal begins tonight in the quiet sanctuary of your own imagination. It begins with the simple but profound act of assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It begins with the recognition that the prison that seemed to confine you is built of assumptions, and what has been built can be dismantled. The tools are in your hands, the power is within you, the choice is yours. Choose freedom. Choose it now, not as a future possibility, but as a present reality. Feel its presence, embody its truth, and from this new state of consciousness, watch as the universe conspires to set you free. For that is the law, that is the promise, that is the truth that liberates all who discover it and apply it in their lives. The feeling of being stuck is not your natural state. Freedom is your birthright. Claim it through the divine art of assumption, and it must become your experience. For consciousness is the only reality, and you are consciousness itself expressing in the specific forms of your assumptions. Assume freedom, and freedom shall be yours. This is the law, this is the promise, this is the truth that sets you free.